You're listening to the How to Talk to Girls podcast with your dating coach, Trip, from tripadvice.com. Do you struggle with getting girls to like you? You'll learn step by step how to talk to girls to create deep connections, whether it be for one night of wild fun, a 1 week fling.
Are you currently involved in a sexual relationship?
Or for a lifelong partner.
Full of long-lasting pleasure.
Here's your host, Trip.
Hello and welcome to the How to Talk to Girls podcast. This is your host, Trip, from tripadvice.com. And if you have any questions, you can call into the podcast. Don't forget, the number is 323-432-0025. I'm happy to answer your question on dating, sex, relationships, whatever it is that concerns you in that area. On today's episode, which is very special, we have an interview with the ladies from the podcast of T&A Talk Sex. One of them has T, one of them has A. That's why they so happen to call themselves T&A. But their actual names are Stephanie and Christina. And they're giving us really great information on the woman's perspective on open relationships. What's an open relationship? Well, that's a relationship where you're together with somebody, but you can go out and have sex with other people. So maybe that's something that's interest to you. And actually, a lot of guys don't realize that a lot of girls are interested in that. There is a select niche of women who are interested in open relationships. So these girls are here to give us a perspective on how that works because they have kind of dabbled in this area. And so we're going to hear from them what it's like to be in an open relationship and get that from the girl side, which we have not yet to do. We've talked a little bit about open relationships and how they work on the podcast, but we haven't talked about what it looks like from the other side. And so this is a really cool interview talking about that and getting that perspective all around in terms of how an open relationship works and what the value system is, right? So basically what a guy and a girl need to be doing to maintain an open relationship, and again, how that looks from the female perspective. So gear up wherever you are, sit back and relax, or don't sit back and relax because you might be driving. Unless you're driving one of those self-driving Tesla cars, well, then you can sit back and relax. But still, be careful. Anyways, my point is, listen to this episode. Check out this interview. Really cool stuff coming at you right now. Hello, T&A, a.k.a. Stephanie and Christina. How are you, ladies?
Hi.
We're great.
Doing very well.
It is awesome to have you on the podcast. I really like talking to and just discussing cool things with people who also have a podcast. I feel like that's very rare. I might have just a select handful of those types of episodes on my podcast, just because there's not a lot of people in our niche, and it's just cool to connect. So I'm happy to do an episode like this.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is fun to collaborate.
I think too, podcasting people, we share everything so openly. We're so used to saying anything on the air. So we hope we can be of service to how to talk to girls.
I know you will be, and I think that you bring up a good point too, because I feel like you guys are my old podcast partner when I had a podcast before this one called Dudes Talking About Chicks. He used to say media trained, like that was his term for it, media trained. So I guess it's like we're all on this episode kind of media trained, meaning we can speak freely and feel comfortable, and we talk into microphones all day long and all that good stuff. So I mean, why don't you? I know we talked about this just a second ago off the podcast, but for the listeners, tell us a little bit about your podcast and what it's about and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, so we are T&A Talk Sex. We go by these pseudonyms, T and A, which is short for tits and ass, not to mince words. I am a little more buxom up top, so I am T. That's Christina, and
I've got a booty.
Yeah,
it's a good booty.
It's great.
It's a great booty.
Yeah, so I was okay with giving you that title,
I mean, we're both beautiful or whatever, but if you look at us, she's grapefruits and lemons.
Right, so our photo icon is grapefruits and lemons, just to clear that up. I thought the visual allowed people to understand better that that's the gist, but our show is us talking really candidly about sex, relationships, taboo topics, judgment-free, sometimes gender dynamics as well, to just open the conversation so that we don't have fear. I mean, we just did a sexual fantasy show where we got really personal.
I shared all of my sexual fantasies that are hilarious.
Yeah, I shared things I'd never ever told anyone.
Right. Not like the things you want to do in real life, but the secret things that you
imagine in your head. Yeah. So it's really, we hope to connect with our listeners in a way that allows them to express themselves more fully, and also answer any, little nuanced questions like, coconut oil is amazing for sex, but, not with condoms because they will break the condom.
How many times I have Googled that last year? It was a lot, and I finally found.
About coconut oil?
Yes, for lubrication purposes, and it's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah. No, it happened twice to me.
Where a condom broke.
Yeah.
Scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So don't do that.
Don't do that.
But A and I, or Stephanie and I, come from having, I had an open relationship, and
so did I, and I was also I did sensual massage in the sex industry, and so we came together and we had all these amazing insights and experiences with sexuality we wanted to talk about.
Right. So the open relationships too, we were exploring so much, and I was learning and growing so much with myself and what it meant to be in a long-term relationship with someone while doing all of that. Mm-hmm. And we started sharing books because we needed to deepen our knowledge to be better in our relationships. And we were just learning so much that we said, okay, let's take it to the air. I was already doing another podcast in comedy. I do stand-up as well. I was saying I sort of tell the naughty version of the stories on the stage, and then I open up and get like emotional and soft on the show.
Wow,
that's so funny.
It's always it's super
two sides
fun.
of you.
I know. Oh, the myth of the lady.
I love it. That's amazing. I think what's really cool too is for the guys out there listening, is they get a little taste of a different type of female personality. One that is very sexually open, comfortable with their sexuality, open to talking about things. And I just don't think guys really get to see that a lot, especially if they have not been in a relationship. You don't really get to be so open sexually with women, usually, unless you're in a committed relationship with them. There's not a lot of girls who are open to talking about that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I think you're right on, because whenever we're out, or I think guys are always commenting about how either my partner or partners
your sexual partners.
Yeah. Or just people we meet at parties and networking and stuff. They're like fascinated by how open we are about all these things and
articulate on it. But I think, yes, I think women do struggle with, as much as men do. I think there's a lack of acceptance, and there's a fear of judgment that if you do open up about it, you're naughty or you're bad or it's dirty or you should be embarrassed. All of the above. Yeah. And so I think women can be a closed book because they also feel like there's sort of, I think, this setup in our society that says, girls are supposed to, keep their legs closed, and guys have to, find a way to open that clam. And it's so much nicer when you can talk freely and openly about, your interests and what you want and what turns you on.
Right. I'm sure there's something that feels just really good about it. And I just like that we're able to do that on today's episode too. And speaking of being open, one of you is in hold on, let me guess if I see how smart I am here, because I'm trying to get this right. A is in an open relationship, and C is trying to figure that out?
No, this is A speaking, we both have been in open relationships.
You've been in open relationships, but you're not currently in one.
Neither of us are currently in relationships.
Right. I currently have a revolving door.
Okay, right. So you're both single.
Right.
I feel like A is you've kind of like gotten a little more conservative lately, and I'm
in like focused career mode at the moment.
Right. So you're more, but you're also, I feel, looking for more of a real relationship.
Oh yeah.
And I sort of have like ongoing dynamics with several people, and there's sort of a nice flow, and I cherish the interactions I have, but they are usually temporary.
Where
but
do
we
you
both,
two fall on the sexuality spectrum?
in terms of,
heterosexual.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Heterosexual.
heterosexual.
Where? I mean, but it's like a spectrum.
I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, I identify as heterosexual. I like to play with women, but like more superficially. Like I don't think I technically had sex with a woman, but I don't really consider it. I don't really count it.
It wasn't like something
Because
that you were gunning for.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I felt so like I had no idea what was going on, and there was another guy. I just didn't feel like it was like I needed more time to really count that as like a full experience.
Right.
So but yeah, to play and
I feel pretty stupidly heterosexual. Like I can't.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Stupidly.
T gets nervous. Like if we're
I'm intimidated by the woman. I'm
it's cute.
And I'm also fascinated. I am fascinated by the male experience of a woman as well. I mean, it's a force. When I think about myself sexually, and other women, I think it can be a lot. But I joke that I will go gay by like 45, 50. I don't know if that can sometimes seem offensive to the gay community, but I feel like I have like an attraction. There've been 2 women in my past where I thought, wow, this woman's beautiful. I could go gay for her.
Okay.
But then I never acted on it.
I do have a crush on a girl on my block.
Meow.
I know, and I see her all the time when we're walking dogs. But I don't know what would I do with that. I don't know. I just what it is. I think I'm just aware of sexual energy being present, and there's probably just a general attraction for us to be friends anyway. And then there's a little bit of sexuality there. So whether it would blossom into anything, I have no idea. I mean, I've never, I've never gone down that road, but I do feel that kind of attraction.
I think you bring up an interesting point, which is we talked about this on our on another show, which is sort of gradients of sexual attraction. And I don't know, Trip, in your opinion, if men, go this deep and kind of the nuance of it, but I think sometimes that can be confusing to guys. But I think women can feel like a level of attraction, but not necessarily the full throttle, or like they, or there's sexual attraction, but not emotional relationship attraction. And then there's the other versus sexual. I mean, it's very layered.
Yeah. For guys, it's just a lot different. I mean, I'll tell you this, I can, and I don't even feel embarrassed about it. I can tell you if I think a guy is a good looking guy, I can tell you if I think he's attractive or not attractive or, on like a physical level. Doesn't mean I'm attracted to him, but I can just kind of tell. But it's funny because sometimes I think I have a good eye for that. And then I'm like, oh, that guy's attractive, right? Like, you're attracted to that guy. And the girl's like, no, not at all. Like, that's not my type. And I'm like, really? Like, I feel like that would be...
Does she have a good reason for why not?
Not every girl's different, She's like, oh, that's just not my type. I don't like, whatever it is about that guy. Like, oh, I wasn't interested in that, or that's not my look. It's funny. And this is something a lot of guys out there who are listening should learn about, is that women just, they are not all for the stereotypical Brad Pitt. Like, I'm telling you, so if anyone's ever seen me before, I'm like a tall, lanky, skinny dude, with like just enough muscles to get by, but pretty much like they're non-existent, right? I'm just like a skinny, tall dude. And, and like,
are you also hairless?
I am somewhere in between it. No, I would, I have a medium amount.
Okay.
Like the back, there's not a lot of back hair, but there's chest hair. Oh yeah, okay. You want to know?
You have hair in the right places.
I have hair in the
standard.
There's a standard hair. I mean, maybe a little bit more. I'm not like clean shaven at all on the front, and the back it kind of is. So, but anyway, I've learned there are some women who are really into that. They're like, yeah, I like guys who are just fucking skinny. Like, I want them to be really skinny. And I know other girls who are like, I like them a little thicker. I want them chubby, or the chubby chasers, as they call them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's everything out there.
Like, everything. And like, I'll go on a date with a girl, and she's like, oh, like, like, this is like last year, this girl was like, I really like it when you wear like your glasses, like your thick-rimmed glasses, and your hair is really long and puffy and out there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then like my girlfriend before that was like, wear your contacts, cut your hair. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this
That's
is
so
crazy.
crazy.
Women are so complicated.
I hear these. We were talking to someone else recently who was talking about specific preferences like this, and I just don't have any.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
I don't. I mean, it's more of like a personality thing.
Okay, like
know?
when I was in my long-term open relationship,
no to.
that boyfriend, I liked it when his hair was grown out. I did like, he kind of curled naturally, not tightly, but, cute little locks of, curls. And when he cut it, I was just like, wow, I'm like 30% less attracted to you.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, the curls make a difference. But he always felt this struggle between his work environment, wanting a more conservative look.
No, yeah, for long hair. No, I for like small preferences like that. But something that would make me say no to a guy.
Right, I agree. I wouldn't say no. But it sounds like they didn't say no. They dated you and then adapted you.
Adapted you to their
valid. It's interesting, yeah. And so I always tell guys, like, listen, don't try to fit yourself into a mold. I'd say maximize whatever you have, and to make you look as best as possible and just, see what happens. But
yes, but maybe I am a proponent of picking a defined style that represents yourself, but showing no effort at all, like in any way, shape, or form.
Great point.
Yeah,
this came up.
It just shows me. It indicates to me whether it's true or not, a laziness of personality in some way, or like.
Or a lack of self, or right. Like knowing who you are. And maybe you don't know who you are. So maybe this is a good opportunity to look into that. But yeah, I love what you're saying. Like, it's not about, I can buy the most expensive thing.
Or I'm going to be this, like the Abercrombie guy, or the
right.
guy.
But it is saying, okay, these physical items are symbolic of who I am. Right, reflect in some way what my character is, and that's a real turn on for me.
Yeah, and I think it also indicates an aesthetic sense, which is very sensual. So if you have an aesthetic sense, then it indicates also to me that there's some sensuality in you, and you understand how to touch me.
Wait, talk about that a little bit more. What do you mean?
Yeah. I just mean that sensuality takes attention, and attention and intention. And in the way, like when you think about touch, I learned this a lot through my sensual massage, but when you're touching someone, what makes it really magical is what's behind your touch. And that's what's going through your mind when you're touching this person. And
are you giving in the touch?
Yeah, or are you thinking about, I want to have this effect on her, or, it could be too controlled, even though the attention is there, it's too, like you're gunning for a certain response or a certain something, and that's too versus when someone touches you where they're like when I touch someone, and I have a great touch, and
she does.
I do. I'm like
her hugs are healing.
But when I'm touching someone, I'm it's almost like my mind I'm tuning into their muscle, to their body, to what I'm feeling. And so by me being in the moment and experiencing what that feeling is, it keeps me in the moment and keeps me tuned in to them and their body and their experience, versus like thinking about this or that and trying to have an effect. Right.
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying. Like, it's almost like a detailed meditation. Like you're focused on this person's details of their skin or something.
Or that they can be in the moment with me and like.
So bringing that back to how you're dressed.
What
does that have to do with how you're dressed?
I think like if I'm looking at a guy who's just in like t-shirt and jeans and sneakers and like whatever, like not well thought out t-shirts, or something that's just sort of a blob, then I feel like he's going to be completely unaware of any of that level of things. Like it's just
what's interesting is the thing is it might not be true, right? Like someone can not put that effort in, and what I'm saying is sometimes they live more in the body, or they're more in their head, and so it's not a priority. They haven't been taught to make it a priority. I think especially American culture is very, like, we have a lot of outdoorsy culture, and there's a whole wardrobe with that, although that's specific, and then that says something to me. But yeah, so I think to not make a choice at all, just sort of, it's almost like you want to stand out in some way. Like they talk about it in branding, like to get like corporate, but it's like, if you don't choose a style, then who are you? how do I pick you out in a bar or, whatever outdoor venue I'm at, or I don't know.
Right. It is easier for girls and I say this in a good way, like you want to be categorized almost. You want to be categorized as something because you're like a niche product. You know what I mean? It's like, so if you want to, and this would be going into the ideas, like if you want to attract a certain type of girl, you should dress in that arena. So if you're really into girls who are, I don't know, super like suicide girls, like goth and like tattoos and stuff, and that's just your thing, maybe you want to dress similar to that. Maybe you want to get a tattoo. I don't know if that's something that interests you. You know what I mean? Like you want to go with what it is you're trying to attract. If you want to get that supermodel type girl, you might want to dress a little bit more GQ style. She will most likely, be interested in a guy who's going to be dressed like
that style.
I mean, I would say as long as it's authentic, because if you're dressed in like a GQ style, but then, I mean,
I think the GQ, that's a great example in the sense of, I feel like that's very aggressively marketed to the mainstream in the sense of like, this is what's sexy. This is what sells. This is how you get a chick. And it's like, well, that's not true. And it's like, it can get you a certain type of chick, right? But it's like,
right.
And I think, I think it's defining for you what you like and allowing the world to see that so that you attract a woman who also values that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The values have to be in alignment. Like, yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, the values is the thing that's gonna keep everything together for sure. Right. I mean, yeah, you could go for someone with a certain look, and they have all the looks that you really crave in someone. But if you don't share the same values and you don't respect the person on any level, then it's as a relationship that's not going to work out.
Right, but as a booty call, could be great.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I mean, I've definitely been attracted to things that were not me. Like I went through a whole phase. I don't know if it's a phase, might still resurface, but occasionally I was kind of into certain piercings that guys had, and that leaned towards guys that would then have tattoos and this kind of thing. And I wouldn't say it's definitely, I don't have any extreme tattoo, piercings. But I did find it kind of hot, or I didn't eliminate because of that, although I'm a pretty open book. I've dated a lot of different ethnicities.
We don't really have a style.
Yeah.
Like a type.
Do you, I feel like you have one? No, mm-hmm. You've been pretty broad. I don't, all ethnicities, different looks, different styles, the GQ guy to the hipster from the thrift store. Maybe because they have like a sensuality and an attention that they offer.
Here's what's most important. It's what's in your eyes. It's the look you give me in your eyes. So whatever you're dressed in, whatever like category you think you're in or whatever, if you're like, not all caged up when you come and say hi and we meet and you're like vulnerable and available yet confident and assertive, that's the sexiest thing.
Right. It's like your eyes they're almost like relaxed and they're more looking through you and into you rather than looking at you.
Right. Or even looking inward. A lot of times I can see their eyes are actually not physically focused inward, but their attention is inward, self-conscious, like super hyper aware of themselves because they're nervous.
Right.
And that means they're not perceiving anything. Right. Not good.
Right.
Yeah, but what's the lesson? Do you just have to practice until you feel comfortable enough? Mm-hmm. You might not make a home run every time. I mean, I've gotten nervous with guys too.
I grew up this way. I was super insecure. Like, where talking to anybody, I would be that way, just super insecure and hyper aware of myself and not really present. And so then you can't really talk really well. This is with guys, girls.
Yeah, like anybody. It goes both ways. Girls get nervous.
You definitely can train out of it. It's just practice doing it.
Yeah, I think confidence comes from competence.
Yeah.
It's all about getting out there and getting used to whatever it is that you're scared of. So whatever it is that you fear, you fear it because you just don't know about it. You don't know it, or possibly you do know it and you've just had really bad experiences in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, or fear. Like for me, I was afraid of judgment or afraid of failing in some way socially or afraid of not being liked or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like in some ways I would almost be like overconfident. Like as the chick, I was like, I'm going to plume my feathers for you. don't you want to be with me? And then I was like, you know, people make fun of me. That's like, that's what guys do. You know what I mean? Like, the girl needs to just chill. Like, I'd almost overcompensate. And then I'd be like, I don't know. Why isn't he into, oh, I tried too hard.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You weren't just being you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's enough.
Right. So you
But
guys,
yeah, I mean, you date and learn that.
you guys were in open relationships in the past. I want to hear more about how that went down. What was the start of that? You know, what made you interested in that? What made you comfortable with it? You know, because there's a lot of talk out there about, you know, I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't think most women are interested in that. I think it is a very, very select few who would want to do that. And I've talked to a lot of women, and pretty much never have I heard them be like, "Yeah, I would try that," or
Yeah.
I could be interested in that. You know. So what got you into that?
For me, and let me just say that the jury for me is still out on, like, I could see myself in the future trying again or whatnot, in terms of like, does monogamy work? Do open relationships work? Yeah, the jury's out. I don't have a decisive answer on that. But for me, it was started because I had moved to LA and my partner was staying in San Francisco. So we were going to be doing this, you know, 2-city thing, and we'd been together for 2 years. And I was in a place where, like, here I am, I'm moving to LA, I'm starting this whole new leg of my life. And I really had this itch in me to just be open to everything. I just felt like it was really important to me on every level to open myself up to experiences. And at the same time, I was doing sensual massage, and my partner knew. And at the same time, I was sort of writing this book or this story around my experience with sensual massage, and I was interviewing my clients, and most of them are married. And so with my experience with sensual massage, I really was questioning monogamy hardcore, because here are all these married men who are just lining up out my door, you know, and I would ask them, why are you coming? Why, you know, all, like, just sort of getting into their psychology, like, because here, you know, the guy I was with wanted to get married and whatnot, so I'm like,
There's so many scary signs outside my door.
And also as a practitioner, like, I did develop good friendships with my clients, and even started a couple love affairs once we did open the relationship up. And I felt like it was theoretically, and I felt it was possible inside of me to be able to stay connected and in love with my partner, but yet still have these really lovely, connected experiences with other people.
I like to call them dalliances.
Yeah, right. And not just like a booty call thing where you just, you know, don't know the person's name, that's it. But, like, you know, genuine connections with just, I say, lovers.
Yeah.
People I don't want to have like I don't want to, like,
you don't want to marry
life with them,
yeah.
But they're lovely people, and
you learn from them, or they're interesting.
So just through my experiences, I just felt like, I'm like, wow, I don't know about this whole just one person for you and that's it. Like, why? I just felt like it was possible, so I wanted to try it. So I went to my partner and proposed it. He didn't really take it very well.
So what happened when you proposed it to him?
He didn't take it that well. He was very, no, I shouldn't say that. He was very nervous about what would happen to us, and yeah, like like what, well, why do we have a relation? Why do we even have a relationship then? Like, he didn't understand why even still consider ourselves a couple. You know, and so it was hard for me to try to explain to him. Again, he's Italian, totally different culture.
Yeah, but you felt like the intimacy is different.
Yeah, I did. So I tried to explain to him, like, well, I don't want to build something with these guys. I want to build something with you. And so there's a certain degree of intimacy there with you that I want.
I think commitment as well.
Right.
There's something about you are actually mentally committed to this person.
Right. Even though my body is not, like,
yeah,
solely committed to you, my heart is, and my intention is, and what I want to do with my life with you is. Right. So that was hard for him to tease that all apart. But he, bless his sweet soul, he
Gave it a go.
He did give it a go because he saw that it was important to me, and we are living in different cities. And I think a part of him was genuinely curious. Like, come on, your girl comes to you and is like, hey, let's have an open relationship. And
Yeah.
and, you know, and I'm also not there all the time to satisfy his urges.
I think that's part of it too, by the way. It's like you'll meet people out and you're like, oh, this could be fun. And instead of having to say, oh, I'm in this dynamic and there's someone, you know, across the ocean, so no, which can be really hard and can also feel isolating. And, you know, I think a lot of people, I'll say this, people obviously fear that you'll fall in love with another person.
I do think that is a legitimate concern.
Well, that's what I was going to get at, which is now being a seasoned veteran, what happens, you become familiar actually with what you would call like the infatuation phase, or this sort of like love addiction that happens at the beginning. And you do get really excited about the person and they do inspire you and you're like, oh.
But you also learn to recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not forever and it's not the main defining thing about the relationship. So again, it is sort of these different layers. It's like that person, sometimes maybe you have the potential to be committed to them and have like a deeper relationship, but you're making that, the lover, I'm saying, but you make that choice. You're deciding. Right. And I find that most of the ones that I encountered, I had a great time with them, but they were not, I didn't need to commit to them. I didn't, right.
But
I was committed to my partner.
Relationships. They were relationships. They
were in the sense that I have recurring,
with, but you would hang out. Right. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm like cutting off your sentence. Yes, recurring lovers, right? Like they weren't, it wasn't just, oh, I'm at the club and I met some guy.
It's not like 5 a.m., like, hey, where you at?
Or it might have started as that.
Well, then it turns into like a beautiful friendship and someone you see regularly.
Also, so can
I just share that in fact, I think what happens is, for someone who doesn't have any experience in this, is that when you meet somebody new and you do go into this infatuation zone where I think traditionally people would be like, oh my God, I'm so in love with this person. You come to that's what you come to realize. It's like, no, that's not love. Right. And so I think it just takes a little bit of wisdom and patience to just allow that excitement to be there, but not take it as this meaningful thing that means that,
or a symbol
because I have this much excitement about this new person, that means that I'm not supposed to be with my partner.
Right, or it doesn't invalidate your love and commitment to the other person.
Right.
That said, there are times where meeting someone new can be a signal that maybe you're not in a healthy relationship, or there's a dynamic that does need to change, and that's why you found this other person.
Yes, that can also see how complicated it gets.
It's very complicated, but I think the point is that you have to actually explore it. You have to take it case by case. It's not, it's not simple. And
I say this to everybody I talk to about it, but I do think that it takes a very, very self-aware people to try this kind of dynamic. And what I mean by that is people on both ends, both partners, who are all parties, who are willing to really look honestly at themselves and what's missing for them, what they need, and also.
Well, look, I think for me, I'm like, sometimes there are blind spots. You don't always know. Yeah. I think there's something to committing to showing up to the table to have the conversation.
Exactly.
And I think if you have that commitment and agreement with each other, it's not like, oh, you crossed a line, we're done.
Right.
You kind of banish that right. That's no longer how it works. Right. You're kind of on a new, like a higher level of like, we have to talk about it. You're upset about something or something's bothering you. What is it? What's that detail?
Which means you have to be willing to hear shit about yourself from your partner, perhaps, or you know what I mean? There has to be an openness.
Or truth about their attraction to someone else that maybe makes you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's interesting is with my long-term partner, things came out for him where he was like, oh, it's kind of a turn on that you're like with that guy, or like imagining him with you, or, and that was sort of a fun thing for us to realize that he had never explored either.
It was a turn on for me too, to think about my partner with someone else. It also like stabbed me in the heart a little bit, but it was like,
it did?
Yeah, but I had to get over it. I mean, that's jealousy, and jealousy is something you can get over.
Oh.
Totally. I'm Scorpio. I'm like naturally, natively super psycho jealous, right?
Yeah.
But when I was 26, I remember the day I hated being jealous, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't want to be jealous anymore. And so I committed to figure out what the hell it was. And it was all rooted in insecurity.
Yeah.
So anyway, so jealousy definitely, it still exists. And there are couples that we've talked to who are in open relationships, high functioning ones.
Right.
And they still experience jealousy too from time to time.
Well, and I think it's checking in with that. That's the point, is having that conversation.
So where does that come from? You say it comes from insecurity, but what does that mean exactly?
For me, I feel like jealousy, it was when I kept questioning myself as to where that was coming from and followed the little breadcrumb trail to this. I feel like every problem has this golden nugget at the core of it. And so when I followed it down, jealousy was rooted in a fear that someone else was better than me. And coupled with the same thing, opposite side of the coin, is that I'm not good enough. So these are core human
fears.
Yeah. But, and so that's why it's sort of this great, beautiful challenge to be faced with jealousy, because you have an opportunity to face that fear inside yourself, that you're not enough and that this person is better than you.
So when you come to that point, when you fix that, or you have a good handle on that, and you know and you believe in yourself to say that I am good enough and, I am awesome, that's when the jealousy starts to dissipate?
Yes. And also, yes. A strength in that, and then also and also it's also being able to, I want to say, it almost feels like this inclusive thing. Like, instead of being, like, if my partner's having sex with another girl, instead of, like, excluding her and comparing myself to her and, like, getting all spiteful and jealous about it, which feels like it's very, like, me versus her, I instead take a deep breath. There's a lot of breathing for me involved in this. And I recenter myself and say these things to myself to help me feel more at ease. And then I actually do an exercise where, like, I try to incorporate her. So instead of making it a me versus her thing, I instead think about, well, my partner's awesome, and he picked this girl, and I'm sure she's totally awesome. And she is also giving my partner something that he needs or finds interesting and is enjoying. And so I'm grateful for her to give him this experience.
I was going to say, appreciating the qualities that they bring. I mean, the same way you go to a party, honestly, and meet cool people and enjoy talking with them. And again, they're maybe not your long-term going home with them forever, but you're like, wow, cool, let's hang out. That'd be fun to go do whatever for the weekend.
Totally. So I think the more experiences you're able to have like this, and it's like it's not just going to happen immediately. It's a process, right? But the more experiences you have and the more able you are to breathe through the jealousy and do these things to help you see it from a different side, I feel like that's where this transformation starts happening.
Yeah. Also, there are books that I read while going through the process. My partner and I read them together. It helps. It does help. I think it gives you a little bit of like a mooring while you're going into the dark, or it's like a flashlight in the dark, so that you are less afraid, or you kind of have, it's like, they'll give you almost like a guidebook of questions you should consider before you, start doing it. Yeah. Do you have some rules? That said, I feel like generally the rules get broken inevitably, and then someone, depending on how persnickety you are, you're like, you didn't call at 11 and you said you were going to call at 11 because that's the rule and that's how and I think knowing that we have a framework of rules and we want it to work, we're going to follow them as best we can, but I think some leniency, and that's where coming to the table to talk about it is important, to be able to say, okay, that hurt me, you didn't follow the rule or whatever, and I say that because I think there's an expectation of like, well, we set up the framework and you broke it. And I feel like that happened to me a little bit in my open dynamic, and that felt unfair.
So the rules are very important.
Yeah. But I think I'm saying
being open to renegotiate them and
and discuss why maybe a rule got bent and what is it still working? So okay, maybe the way we thought it would work doesn't, and we have to readjust.
Right, because it's totally new territory. You're in a new frontier, so you're not going to know what rules are going to work. So you just have to like throw them out there and make them and then try. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like building a company. It's like, I don't know. I mean, when you approach it that way, you're able to kind of digest it rather than just saying, well, I was told that, you meet someone that you love and you commit and then you get married and you never ever have a roving eye again. And that's it. And then you're like, why do I have a roving eye? And you want to kill yourself, or you think you're a bad person, or, all this stuff. And it's like, well, it's complicated. Can I share a little bit of my journey? I ended up in an open dynamic for the first time when I had one boyfriend that was a year long relationship in college. And then after that, I ended up in a long-term relationship. And I think I felt like this was someone I was going to be committed to forever. And even now we are no longer in a committed relationship, but we have a friendship and stay in touch. But, I think I always had a little bit of a curiosity about an open dynamic. And I also sort of feared this idea of forever, that I could possibly never, experience sexual intrigue with someone else again, or the thrill of it, or the pleasure of flirting, like all these things that are very important to me. I mean, if I'm honest about my personality, I'm definitely carefree. I'm definitely very flirty. It gives me a lot of energy and vivacity. So to lose that is hard. I don't feel like myself if I don't have that. So early on, I was actually sort of nervous to talk to him about it, and I had a lot of shame around it. And there was a young woman in my acting class who mentioned casually that she was in an open dynamic with a man that she was married to. And I was like, really?
Does it exist?
Yeah, I was like, could we go to coffee, get coffee and talk about it? And then she just said, well, yeah, maybe, I'm pretty busy. Like, here, read The Ethical Slut. And so I bought the book and I hid it from my partner originally, and I was embarrassed. And I read the book, and then my partner started traveling a lot for work. And then someone reached out to me on Facebook and wanted to have coffee. And then we had coffee. And then I was like, and he clearly expressed, romantic interest. And so then I was like, oh God, what do I do? And I ended up, if balls to the wall honest, my boyfriend was out of town, and I was like, okay, he's coming back. The next day when he's back, I will talk to him about this person that I met, where I hadn't crossed a line yet, but we had been talking about the potential of it. And that night, literally he'd arrived, and I was like, okay, I'll tell him in the morning.
Who arrived?
My boyfriend. And he went through my phone, and he was like, who's this guy you're talking to? And I was like, well, nothing happened, and I was going to talk to you about it, but basically I have this whole thing in my head about an open relationship, and I've been afraid to talk to you about it, but here's the book.
And read it.
Yeah, and it cracked wide open, and we had this very intense conversation, and he's like, are you trying to break up with me, but you're afraid to? And I'm like, no, I genuinely love you, want to be with you, would like the freedom to, experiment with someone who understands I'm in a committed relationship. But is open to whatever, playing with me or hanging out, and sort of, and it was someone who was very interesting to me. And I did feel kind of just learn from him creatively. Oh, hello.
Still
can
there?
You hear?
Yep. All good.
You guys can hear me?
Yep.
I can't. No,
Loud and clear.
I can't.
You cut
sorry.
out. You
Our
were
audio
like,
cut
we
out.
lost Trip.
I'm here.
I was just in the moment. I was vibing. Okay. Sorry. So back to, where was I? Oh,
He came home.
No. Well, I was learning creatively from this person, and I felt this great pleasure in spending time with this other party who, and I kind of relegated it to specifically when my boyfriend's out of town. And with my boyfriend's knowledge. It was bumpy, but he finally was like, yeah, let's try it. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I felt at the time like a lot of physical need and desire, and to not be touched for like long periods of time. I was sort of getting weird in my brain. Like I would be out with friends and I'd be like, I felt like I was leering at men. Like I felt this intense, like it was a problem.
Because your boyfriend was out of town so much for work?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm about to like...
She's a neglected woman.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to sexually harass a guy in a bar. I'm going to like grab his ass, and it's like, oh, this is probably how people get to this point. Like who knows how long they haven't been touched for. I found that my boyfriend would come back. When he'd come back from being on 10, he'd hug me, and I'd almost sort of flinch because I'm making it sound like it was like months, but this is the point. It'd be like 2 weeks, maybe a month, or like 2 or 3 weeks, but it was like, that was enough to be like, I went from having this monogamous cocoon to like nothing. Yeah. And it was really turbulent. I think sometimes age and maturity plays into that too. Like, I think I'm less vulnerable than I was at the time, but I'm 30.
And I'm 33.
Okay, so early 30s, got it.
Yeah, so the open thing started probably when I was 25.
Okay.
Mine was 29.
Would you guys do that now? Would you get into an open relationship now if it just kind of happened?
I actually met 2 guys. Yeah, yes, for me. I met 2 guys where I thought, I would love to date both of you.
Yeah, for me, yeah, because I do feel like I've entered into this zone of really deepening love, I guess, and just deepening in general in life with everything. And so I do feel at this point I would want a more one-on-one focused dynamic. However, I am very aware that may change. Like if for example, I found someone that I wanted a one-on-one thing with, maybe, a couple years down the road, 5 years down the road, I feel like I understand enough about sexuality and psychology that can totally change. Like, I feel like there's this incubation period with relationships where it's like, it is one-on-one, and you build and you build and you build. And then once your house is stable, then the energy shifts and you have more energy, but you're not spending as much energy building the house. The energy is spent doing other things together. So I don't know. So down the road, maybe that would be different. But right now, I would want like a committed one-on-one thing.
What about a polyamorous relationship where it's like you and a girl and a guy all together?
I wouldn't say no to anything right now. You know what I mean? Like, I could anything is possible if I met the right people,
Yeah. What's funny is it is interesting that in both cases, like, I have to admit, in my open dynamic, I was primarily
the one
exercising. Yeah, I had lovers, and
he was busy working.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah. No, he had a very taxing
he did,
job at the time, and that. He did have a couple of experiences, but I was definitely, I think my nature is more adventuresome and curious and enjoys sexual conversation.
So could you do a polyamorous thing?
Well, I'm laughing because it seems like I just said, there were 2 guys where I thought, oh, cool, I'd love to do that, right? And I'm the, I'm kind of enjoying dating both of them. So I haven't had a man approach me and say, hey, I want to date you and this other woman. Actually, recently a woman approached me about her and her partner.
To be the unicorn.
Yeah.
The unicorn.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, kind of what you're saying. I was like, well, I feel like you only live once. So to say no is to like block out this thing, and they are very like sexually adept. And I totally have fear around it. Like, I've never done that. I've never stepped into a relationship, and I've also had such little experiences with women, which I said, so I was like, all right, maybe, all right.
I've had fantasies I've always thought about it, actually. I think I probably am maybe a good candidate for this with like 2 women, like me, another woman, and a guy, because I don't know why I've fantasized about this, not sexually, but like envisioned this, but it's very natural for me where I'll be thinking about a girlfriend of mine who is just an amazing woman, but she's really vulnerable or in a specific place in life, and she just needs love, and she doesn't have a partner. And I'm like, oh, she can have mine. Like, my immediate reaction is to share my wonderful partner with her.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've noticed that happen like a few times, and I'm like, good Lord, Stephanie, what is that?
Interesting.
But I wonder if that's a native, natural instinct,
like
that
a
I'm
human,
just not blocking. Right.
Like I'm more and more think about the way, like, community.
It's communal. So I think if it was a best friend of mine, I think I would have no problem at all. Actually.
Trip, I want to check in that we haven't alienated our listeners. Are we like so left field? Like,
no. This is listen, we're right on track. It's entertaining. It's informational. Again, I really think that this episode is about hearing the female's point of view in terms of open relationships and just this kind of natural back and forth chit chat on it is pretty eye opening. It's eye opening to me. Like I am very just curious and interested in terms of what you guys are saying on this.
Can I say this came up? My long-term partner, I think, at times questioned if I felt like he wasn't good enough sexually. Like,
Sure,
you're seeking these other partners because somehow
I'm not sexually
Right. That's a big thing. Yeah.
sure.
Right, like, and I'm totally sympathetic to why someone would have that fear.
But that's not the case.
It wasn't the case.
Not the case.
It really wasn't. And I think what's interesting is, yes, I'm having interesting, new, different experiences over here in right field, but I've always loved having sex with my partner, always loved connecting with him, and, and did have a very rich sex life.
Yeah,
with him.
I think
so,
I would venture to say that for most women, I don't think it's about the actual sex. It's not like, oh, you're not doing this or you're not good enough in bed, so I'm going to go find out. I think that's more a male perspective, maybe.
Well, unless you're having, I mean, yeah. No, I'm with you. But then I go, well, we have our show where, we want people to write in and ask questions. I mean, I think some people don't have a lot of sexual knowledge, and that's something that you can gain, right? Anyone can
totally.
grow
I'm just
and
saying
develop
that
themselves.
It wasn't.
Anyway, I didn't venture out because I wasn't satisfied at home. It wasn't
neither
like,
did I.
You don't make me come, I'm gonna find a man I can get off with.
Yeah, it's not out of a lack. It was just
Curiosity.
a curiosity and not wanting to hinder my own development. It's
Right.
like, well, yeah. So I carry this perspective now, and in fact, I do. Like, I was dating somebody recently, and I told him in the beginning, I said, look, I don't want to put a stop on your life and how it rolls out for you. And I don't feel like my role as a partner is to do that. So I don't ever want to put limitations on someone. So I said, so if there's ever needs, like if you are super sexual and you do find that you need more partners, or that's what you want, just communicate with me, because I don't feel like it's my place to say, no, you can't do that because of this belief I have, or this fear I have, or this insecurity I have. I feel like that's very selfish. So I always endeavor to try to give my partner the freedom.
I think a lot of people don't. I mean, I feel like I even came from a place of fear where I was operating in a relationship where I didn't push myself to have those open conversations. And I think a lot of us are operating from that idea of like, well, by drawing this boundary, that's how you prove you love me.
Right.
And it's like, life is long. I mean, it goes by fast too. It's kind of both. And so, to contain yourself and not get to have an experience out of perceived loyalty.
Yeah.
Is that fair to each other?
And how often do you hear people say like, I mean, it's the classic thing when there's an affair going on. It's like, it doesn't mean anything. I love you. It's
yeah, and you're like, liar, pull out the shotgun.
I think that everything I'm hearing here too, everything like the through line here is about communication. I feel like everything I've heard so far is like, if it's something you want to try or interested in, maturely, respectfully communicate with your partner or someone that you're dating or having sex with what you want and your interests and what it's all about for you, and just being very raw and honest. And if you can do that, hopefully you're with someone who can respect that. That's what I feel like you guys did with all of your different situations there, was just communicate very open and honest.
Yeah, I mean, that really is the heart of it.
Well, we just had a conversation with the comedian Leah Knauer, and she was talking about kind of that she's much more reserved, and like she doesn't want to have sort of flings, or she really wants to find love and find that more monogamous dynamic, and her frustration, of course, that like in a way we're like leaning towards this like Tinder environment, and I think for me, I loved that she was so clear on what she wanted. And I was like, great. So you will find a partner that also wants that, because that's what you're asking for.
Because you know what you want. And
right. Rather than...
As opposed to masking or trying to pretend that you...
Yeah, to hang on someone. To hang on to someone. And it's like, well, if you clearly don't want the same things. I had this really great dynamic. I was dating a guy going on to 7 months. And I feel like he was almost more ready to have a family, settle down. And I had a couple of like sticking points that were frustrating me in our relationship. And I felt like if those were fixed, I'd be okay to commit. And at some point, it didn't take me long to realize it, but we had kind of broken up, and we got back together, and then I was sort of repeating myself. I was like, something came up again, and I was saying it, and it was in the morning, and he was like getting ready for work, and he's like, comes out of the closet, and he goes, "You're telling me that I'm not giving you what you need." He's like, so if I can't give you what you need, then you should accept that, or something like, something like this. And I was like, yeah.
Does this mean we're breaking up?
Yeah. I was like, and it wasn't aggressive. Like, I almost said it more aggressively than he did. It was like, it sounds like I'm not giving you what you need. And I went, oh my God, yeah. And then I was like, okay. And then I had to like process it. But instead of trying to make myself make this relationship work for another 3 months, another 6 months, like, or whatever it would be, because some things worked, it clicked. And I was like, you're right. I don't need to push this anymore. I think you're an amazing person, and I need to go out and find what I'm actually looking for.
There you go. He just did it for you.
Yeah, I know. So kudos to him for, being a great communicator.
Right.
But in theory, I could have pushed back and said, no, that's not what I meant, and compensated. But I didn't. I actually listened to what I'd been saying. I thought about what I'd said, and I was like, yeah, that does sound like things that you're not prepared to give. And
self-awareness, just knowing what you want.
Right, and also feeling kind of what we've been talking about, which is, not confident, but yes, confident, but also
assertive.
Yeah, but not assertive. What was it? You used a word,
I did.
Steph. Yeah, that was like, I think. Oh, you mentioned it, Trip. Also, like competence is made by
equals confidence.
Confidence.
Right.
Confidence comes from competence.
Yeah, and I think I'm bringing that up because I think confidence in my own competence allowed me to see that I could walk away from it. It wasn't like I didn't need this. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a relationship that was really beautiful in itself, but it wasn't the end of the road. And it was like, oh, okay, I'm not getting what I need, and I am entitled to get what I need as an individual and what I want. Right? I mean, this is the journey that we're on. So let me seek it.
Right. There's this is it. This is I mean, in terms of depends on what you believe in, but as far as I'm concerned, this is kind of all we have. This is the life we have, and life's too short. You got to do what you want, and figure that out and enjoy in the process, So I think we're kind of coming to a close here. We're almost about wrapping up on time, but I just want to say that this, to me, and I always say this after an end of an awesome interview, to me it was eye-opening, and to me it was just really cool to hear all this stuff. And when I feel that, I know for a fact that the guy who's still listening right now is definitely feeling that too, because I've been doing this for over 5 years now, and I've just heard and read so much stuff. So when something new kind of hits me, it means that it was a great thing. So I guess, long story short, this was a really great time speaking to both you ladies in a very open and honest format to hear about what it's like to start and end and be in some sort of open relationship. And of course, I know we only just kind of scratched the surface here, but
I know I'll write a book.
But I'm glad that we were able to do this. And for you guys still listening, check them out. They're smart, they're funny, they're sexual. It's great. T&A Talk Sex. Check it out. It's on iTunes. Are you guys on Stitcher too?
We are.
Yeah, smart ladies. See, I told you they were smart. We're on Stitcher, so check them out. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm excited to go on your show in a couple weeks. So that would be very fun too. And hopefully we'll get you back on and we can continue some stuff. But I don't want to just kind of abruptly end this. Is there anything else you ladies would like to say in conclusion, or any thoughts that you had before we wrap up?
I would say if you're looking to go into an open relationship, maybe sit down with yourself and dig a little and ask yourself why, like what's really motivating you.
Good point.
Yeah.
On a more like logisticals, I'll note that we're also on SoundCloud, and we do an end of the month advice episode now, which is advice at T&A Talk Sex. So if anyone's really grappling with an open relationship issue, we're happy to, you know what I mean?
Give our 2 cents.
Yeah. share if we can, if we can enlighten on any complications. Because I think it can get really scary when you're doing something new.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And thanks for having us, Trip.
Yeah, wow.
So much fun.
Yeah, it was definitely a blast. So guys, T&A Talk Sex Podcast. Google it, look it up, check it out, listen to them. Ladies, thanks again, and we will talk soon.
All right.
Ciao.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and write a review. Over 18 and want a question answered on the podcast? Email all your questions to trip@tripadvice.com.